like, there's the two different analogies. Is like the guy I bought my car from, right? He's in a way, we are both friendly adversaries, and we're both being friendly because we know we'll both get a better price if we're friendly. So there's currency to friendly. Like, I probably went up a little bit more than I would have wanted to just because he was a nice guy, and so being nice has a currency.
If the UK had taken advantage of the position that previous kings gave it, the UK should not have anybody poor in this country. If every single amount of money that had gone into a sovereign wealth fund back in the days in innovation and investment, and if the government did not steal it, because there are motherfuckers that like to steal in there, for sure, every government has them. If you didn't have that, you could have created a wealth fund that actually was profitable and creating wealth and revenue for every single citizen in this. But you don't have that, and that is the problem. I think we're back at it again. Okay.
Which, Jeff Bezos is a funny one because I'm kind of obsessed with Amazon, but I never want to own it. Although I own Alibaba. But anyway, I'm obsessed with Amazon because of the number of ways in which it breaks. When I try and build a conventional investing strategy, almost all the rules are the exception is Amazon. So, for example, I want a high margin business. But the exception is Amazon.com, and the reason the exception is Amazon.com is because it's so low margin, they have almost no competition. Because if you wanted to compete with Amazon.com, like, everyone's competing with Amazon Web Services, which is the main profit driver of Amazon. And as an investor, I would like to invest in Amazon Web Services, but it was kind of it's interesting in so many numerous ways. One is that Amazon Web Services, and I'm going on a massive tangent here. Amazon Web Services, I keep trying to make this into an eToro post, but the post would be so long that no one would read it unless I put a poll at the end. No one would interact with it. But the interesting thing about that is because they were doing Amazon.com, and they were like, we've got a huge website and it's going to get bigger. We need to be able to store this website on the internet. Right, which is fun. I love these weird, bizarre concepts, which is internet real estate, which in so many ways, it's just old school brick and mortar investing, but it just sounds high tech and stuff like that. And there's actual real estate investment trusts for internet storage, and Silicon Valley have managed to turn cool, hip internet into just boring old Wall Street investment banking, essentially. But they needed storage for their website. They needed real estate on the internet. And they thought, let's just buy a ton more real estate than we need, and we'll rent out the surplus. And then if we ever need it, then we can use our extra real estate. And that just proved to be hugely possible in the same way that Microsoft didn't understand it when Google Mail gave people a free gigabyte of storage on email. They were like, no one's ever going to need that much storage. And it's just one of those instances where they were right to overestimate. But the way that Jeff Bezos thinks, this sort of pulls it back to your pottery analogy, is with lots of things, he goes, there's not much need for analysis when you can just roll it back. And so, for example, Amazon Prime, it was a hugely expensive thing. No one doing the data said that it would work, but he was like, but it's basically free to test it. And if it doesn't work, we can just stop doing it.
Yeah, test quickly. It was like test a lot and let go quickly or something like that. But
yeah,
I remember I something along those lines. I don't have
it. Exactly, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But the idea is more important than with most things. Most people with starting a business, they won't start a business or they won't do anything entrepreneurial because they imagine the end stage of the business. And it's like, it is almost always, it's better to do this anyway, which is test it to see if anyone wants it first.
And then see what you learn. And then worst case scenario is research and development, right? So it's like, that's the way that I'm taking it. You know, it's like, even with this market drop, I lost so much money that I'm like, okay, like I might as well just grab some of the profits and put them into a business and see what happens, right?
But did you close out, or did you just? Are you still holding this?
I'm still holding. I bought more.
Yeah.
You gotta buy more, right? I like there's like panic, like there was just too much panic and fear, right? It's just we don't know what it is. We still don't know what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think I have a different view to where the market is now, to where I think the popular consensus is with it, which is that loads of people come up to me and go, "Isn't the market crashing?" And I go, "In what time frame?" And because all of my positions, I'm up on eToro, and most people I look at, they're like, "The portfolio is crashing," and I'm like, "Why are you saying this? You're up over 12 months, 3 years." I can't remember. I think I'm like 40% up from a year ago or whatever.
Yeah, I'm having a look.
And I'm 1%
2-year
up
return
this
is 62%. Yeah.
The thing with it is like a few months ago I was 10% up or whatever, and so people are going, "Oh, the market's crashing." And the way that I look at it is, I don't get too bogged down in macroeconomics, which some people do, but when I look at Greg's sausage rolls, which is one of my biggest investments, I don't think that people will buy less sausage rolls whether Biden or Trump get in.
Agreed. Yeah, that's fair.
It might affect the capital gains in the stock, but that will affect everyone. So, but with regards to Trump getting in, it seemed to me after the assassination attempt on him, the stock market shot up, right? And from that point, I was like, that's a clear marker that Trump is more likely to get in, right? After surviving an assassination attempt is guaranteed to make people like you more, and the market reacted positively to it. So regardless of what I think tariffs mean and having a very volatile person in charge, I don't like Biden. This isn't a political view. It's just, this is Trump in a nutshell. Like, you can't deny that he's in favor of tariffs and is volatile. Regardless of what I think of that, the market clearly thinks it's a good thing for the stock market. And so the analogy that I use is, I had a friend who bought a house. His parents were architects, and they bought this house. And I was like, why'd you buy this house in this location? And they were like, well, there's a very good chance that they're going to build a train station there at this location. That means that currently you have to drive 15 minutes in order to take a train that takes an hour to get into London. After this train station is built, you can be able to get into London in 40 minutes. And so the train station adds about, when it's built, adds about £100,000 worth of value to the house, right? So the house is 300k. After it's built, that houses in that area are worth 400k because it's so close to this station that's going to exist. They were buying it because right now it was hypothetical. So the house value is not going to go down much from where it is, even if there's no station. But if there is a station, then it goes up. The more the government invests in that station, or whoever is investing in that station, the closer that station is to being built, that house price goes up to its realized value. So let's say the final value with a station is 400k, right? And so but there comes a point, right, where the station is so guaranteed to be built, it's probably going to be opening in like 2 to 3 months. But without even a station being there, that house is worth the station's the value as if the station was there, because it's so
you price it in. You price it in.
Donald Trump was so likely to get in. Anyone with money or just common sense could see that he was very likely to get in. That I believe the stock market reacted to Trump getting in before he got in. And so people are saying, oh, Trump's making the market crash. Tariffs are making the market crash. It's like there was such a huge bull run before he got in. It was like we just decided to price the market as if someone who loved the market is in. Although there's no evidence to suggest that Donald Trump's net worth is not based on the S&P 500. He's not as much of a Wall Street guy as Kamala Harris or Biden. Like, he's not that sort of investor. Most of his wealth is in golf courses and stuff like that because he likes going to them for free. So it's not necessarily that he's the guy you go to push up other people's money. He didn't cut his teeth in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. So, it's very, very true. No, and like also I don't know, like I don't think one of the things that many people are kind of panicking about is like, oh, like he's just like coming out of nowhere with this, and I'm like, no, he told us that, right? Like he told it, he said it. Like this was preambled. You know what I mean? Like we got the answers to the test before we had to take the test. Now the big thing with Trump in this case was just like, okay, like the tariffs are like, maybe we thought China, right? Okay, maybe Europe, right? Maybe a little bit Europe, but we didn't think to the scale, right? And I think the scale comes because he doesn't have to get reelected. You know, he's just
Yeah, yeah.
playing to have some fun at this point.
Well, the
You
only
know,
thing that's yeah, I'm not really worried. Trump doesn't scare me.
not at all,
Ne-
not at all. I don't think so either.
Kamala didn't scare me as much as she scared Trump supporters, but I just think they're all pro stock market. They're all pro business. If
They're
anything,
pro
that's the biggest.
America at the end of the day. You know,
The biggest bugbear I have between the two is that Trump is openly pro business, whereas most of the Democrats are closeted pro business, which bugs me more than being openly pro business. But then at the same time, it's a similar effect.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
uh, yeah. The thing with the funny thing that I think is happening today that wasn't happening in the past is it used to be politicians said they're going to do certain things that people wanted them to do, and then they got in and they were criticized for not doing the thing that they said they were going to do. The opposite is now happening in that politicians are saying they're going to do things, and then they get in and they do them, and then people get upset that they did the things that they said. So as you're saying, it's like people are like, "Oh my god, he's doing Trump tariffs on China." It's like that's what he said he was going to do.
He didn't lie. Like one of the things that I can tell on Trump is like he didn't lie. He did not lie. He told you. Now, maybe the intensity of how we, it's like I was doing an episode with another friend, and we were talking about it, and it was like, it's like it's going to the restaurant, and it's like, hey, I would like a reservation, and the girl is like, okay, we have a reservation at 5, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna burn down the restaurant, okay, if you don't give me a reservation at 4, and the lady's like, okay, I'll give it to you at 4:30, and he's like, okay, 4:30 works.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? So it's like.
I think it's more that like that's a lot. That's a lot like what I think. That's actually how Trump is doing things. The way that I would describe his general strategy, to which is actually is a typical way that Christians do business, right? Because this isn't similar across other religions. That's what's interesting. Quakers have a different way of doing business, but Christians, the way that they will do things is, if I want a car, and by the way, this is Christian cultures, not people. There's no correlation between people who believe in God and do this. It's just the fact that I've noticed it in my culture, and I've spoken to people in other cultures and other cultures within my culture, and they do it differently. But basically, the way Christians will barter is the way that I bought my car is the guy had it on the market for 12 grand. I came up to him, I said, my budget's 8 grand, and we settled at 9. Even though, so clearly he didn't want to, he was actually happy to sell it for less. I was actually happy to pay 10. But obviously I don't say 10. I say halfway between what I want and what I'm happy with, sort of thing. And Trump comes in to he wants, let's say, free trade. He wants US products going into Canada for free and coming out of Canada for free. That's like a fair agreement between Canada and the US. But Canada want to make money off US citizens, so they charge for imports. And so Trump goes up to it. He's happy. He wants equal tariffs going in and out of Canada. And he goes, I want 50%. It's like, I'm going to put 50% tariffs on you.
No, he went to the extreme of saying, I want Canada to become the 51st state. He's like, I'm going to invade Canada if you don't do what I say. You know what I mean?
That's where he's like burning down the restaurant, right?
Yeah. Where he puts the, it's gangsterism at its best. It's puts the gun on the table and he says, it's either that, like I want to say Pablo Escobar quotes, plato plomo. You know what I mean? Like it's like, take the money or I'm gonna blast you.
That's where I don't know whether countries see each other as like there's the two different analogies. Is like the guy I bought my car from, right? He's in a way we are both friendly adversaries. And we're both being friendly because we know we'll both get a better price if we're friendly. So there's currency to friendly. Like I probably went up a little bit more than I would have wanted to just because he was a nice guy. And so being nice has a currency. But if you are neighbors with someone, you do things very differently, right? So when my neighbor comes over and asks for a favor, I do it because I know I'm going to have a house party in the future or something like that, which the country equivalent is going to war. And you do these sort of things. You accept, like, I don't, if my neighbor came and said, can I borrow your camper van for a weekend? I might do it even for free, just because there's so many benefits to having
it's a
friendly
repeated
neighbor.
game. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
repeated game, you know? So it's like you're probably going to want something in the future.
Yeah.
You play again.
But then when my neighbor comes to me in the future and tells me off for having a party past midnight, like I'm at 12:01 and they're like, can you turn the music down on a Saturday night on my 30th birthday that they were invited to or whatever, but didn't come, when they start playing these games or charging me for a beer that I had, like a can of beer that I had from their fridge or whatever, then I'm going to start charging them. And there's going to start, what you're going to start having.
Cascading effect.
Because you failed to price in the cost of generosity, right? Future generosity. You just, I think there are things that I agree with in terms of like making government efficient. But have you watched any videos by Rory Sutherland?
Rory Sutherland? No, I don't think I have. Let me have a look. Let me just.
You might have seen him. He's
a face.
Very
because I know the other guy that you want to talk about, which is Gary Econmics. Yeah, Gary Sutherland. Econmics. Yeah, I know him. I know his shorts. I don't know him by name, but I know his.
He's just.
I know his shorts for sure. Yeah. He's great.
Yeah. Rory Sutherland or Gary?
Sutherland. Both.
Oh yeah, when you see him,
he's
they both bring
him. Yeah. He's super iconic. Yeah. Mister, don't try to make the trains faster. Just put hot models inside. You know. Yeah.
There's so much to be said of making things. We have a total misconception as to what people actually want.
Well, this goes back to what you were talking about. Whenever we start a business, right? It's interesting because a lot of people think it's like, okay, like I know what the customer wants, and it's like, no, you don't. You know what I mean? Like you're just one person, right? Yeah. Like the smallest thing might be the thing that actually gets the sale through, and it might be something completely different to what you think it is. You know, so just try things out, move the business forward, and see how that sort of like pertains. But yeah, continue. Sorry. I went into a little bit of a tangent there.
I'm listening. I'm just getting absorbed in what you're saying. What do you think of Gary's Econmics, Gary Stevenson?
He's interesting. You know what I mean? I saw his latest podcast with the Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett.
I think that looks fiery. It's on my watch list.
Look, I take advantage of all the things that he says. I take full advantage of every single one. And if you're gonna put, like, the thing is just I don't choose the rules. I play by the rules set by government, you know? And there are so many rules that are absurd. Like the non-domiciled rule is outrageous, but I'm going to take advantage of it if I can. 100%. 100%. Why not, right? And that stops me from bringing capital into the UK. But then you also have like other things that I have to consider, which is like inheritance tax for wealth that was not created in the UK. You know? So it's like, okay, like I could just leave and I don't have to give you $1 million tax bill or a $2 million tax bill if I just decide to go. Right? So it's like, that's where the economics becomes very interesting. And I do think that he's coming in from the perspective of a trader more than the perspective of a businessman, right? Like that's the main difference in that episode. If you get a chance to watch it, do watch it because it brings in a lot of points. And I do disagree with Gary a lot in the sense of like, I think he's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. And I do agree with the majority of the things that he's talking about. But he also shoots himself in the foot by sometimes deriving the problems from one particular issue instead of a bundle of things, right? Like the fact that like a single mom in XYZ part of the country is not able to feed the, you know, it's like, it's because the economics and the business world around her has not made it so that she can. And do we need to make government do that when people are taking advantage of the system? When people like me, when you're making rules, I'll figure out the loopholes in those rules. So do we need more rules? So the more simply you make the rules, the less I can fuck about.
I think he's made me see it differently. So the thing with Gary Stevenson's videos is that I think when you watch them from 0 to 10 minutes, like that all the way through, he does do a very good job of weaving a narrative and weaving a story, and there's almost nothing to disagree with him. Like I've watched him, and I was wondering, why do I have this apprehension towards Gary's economics? And it's because his videos appear very anti-capitalism, very anti-tax, very just sort of fuck the rich sort of thing. And they're not. When you actually walk through them, he's like, I don't hate bankers, I don't hate traders, I don't hate billionaires. He even says that. It's just that the videos appear that way, on the way that they're titled and the way that he frames himself. But actually, he's just, one of the things I think is interesting is one of the videos that he did recently was how the middle class is in more mortgage debt than it's ever been. In every way of measuring it. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I have no trouble believing that that is true.
Yeah.
And if people are in more debt than ever, someone has to be in more credit than ever. Because if I borrow a can of beer off my mate, I've instantly created a debt of, and let's say I'm going to buy him one back. I've created a debt of one beer. He's in credit for one beer. Like there would be no way for me to borrow a beer of him and to literally borrow a beer off him and not owe him a beer.
Yeah.
Well,
it depends, you know. It depends, though. It depends, because also you can consider what you said before, which is like you're maybe exchanging that for a different currency, which is not the beer, but
something that we both agree,
in the future.
We both agree is worth a beer.
Correct. Sure.
Right.
Sure.
It is in some way worth its economic value of a beer. And so when I take out a loan for 300k, someone is in credit for 300k. Well, actually more than that, and the interest.
You've created new money.
Yeah,
sense, right?
You've created new money, but you've created new credit. You created new debt and new credit. And the thing is, we all agree that the middle class is in more debt than ever. Then the interesting thing is, who's in more credit than ever? And where is that going to? And it used to be in smaller economics, especially if you go back to a time of lords and stuff like that, where you worked on a field and the person that you're all working for literally lives in the house that you're working on. What you'd do is you'd all go to the same, let's go a bit more evolved, but you'd go to your local pub, and your local rich person, or the people connected to the local rich people are in that pub, and you're buying cheap beer and they're buying top shelf whiskey. And so the rich person is subsidizing the poor people being able to be there. You're all getting to socialize. That money is flocking back into the society. The wealthy person is buying a car with a really good audio quality system. The poor person is still getting a car that is decent enough, but it gets them to work and back, but it doesn't have they're not paying, they don't want to pay 40 grand extra to have a good sound system in their car. And they don't necessarily want whiskey when they're in a thing, but the wealthy person wants a way of exploiting their status or showing it off. And what I think is happening because of our tax system is that the money that is being made off mortgages and various other things like rent, if someone can own £100 million worth of housing in Brighton and London and Liverpool and live in Dubai, and if they live in Dubai, they're taxed less, right? And so all of these people are spending 40% of their income, and that goes towards a house in Dubai. And so it makes sense to take the income that is made from £100 million worth of housing.
It gets taxed. You do get, like, that was one thing that you do get taxed for money made in the UK. Like, if you have real estate in the UK, you have to pay UK tax.
You pay more tax the smaller you are.
Agree. No, the thing is, it's like, I agree.
There's the backwardness.
But yes and no. The thing is like, yes and no, and it depends on what you look for in this total sum, right? So one of the big issues, and this would be an interesting episode to actually do, where we both watch the thing and we talk about it as we go through it. I'll be fucking down to do that because I love that episode. But I was very against it because like the way that the way that you bring in the issue is wrong in its foundation, because it's not only that, like he could try to sell those houses and then who would buy them? You know what I mean? Like he has the capital to potentially invest somewhere else, but he decides to invest it here. And I'm sure that there are shitty landlords that are not going to reinvest in the property, but he's actually providing you a service. You know, like renting, when you rent a house, you're getting a service, you're getting access to a loan of $100,000, $200,000 that the owner of the house has, that he's letting you borrow in order for you to pay, and then he's getting something in return. But like, for example, in the landlord scenario, I'm like, look, sure, if you're making the money here, pay the taxes here, right? Like, and if you're living in Dubai, income tax from that, potentially if you structure it within a company and all of these benefits, like there are benefits that you can take advantage of. For example, okay, like let's say if you were to make $1 million in rental income, might as well create an LLC and run the companies through the LLC, but you still have to pay the stamp duty, which is higher at the beginning. So you still have that initial investment. And then you're going to pay the corporation tax, which overall could be less. Sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then maybe you set up the LLC to pay yourself less than 100K. So you're actually paying less income. And then you grab 50,000 of those and you put it in your SIP. So you actually don't have to take. So there are all these different rules, which I think there's more benefit in understanding the current system. But the current system is so complicated. When I first moved into the UK, I had to hibernate for 6 months of my life just to understand one section of the tax code that was applicable to me. And every single time I have to learn something new, it's like, it's a pain. It's horrible. It's horrible.
So I think the first thing is when we think of that single mom that can't feed her kid, it's like, what's going to benefit her? So the reason that I don't like a general hate the rich thing is because of that very ideology that like, wait a minute, what if hurting, because the rich person is investing that money, right? Like in theory, they're investing that money. Do they potentially have it's worth questioning whether investing that money and then having that thing that like where the investment is paid off, is that circling back to that single mom and all the economic effort that she's putting into society, that should be circling back to her, right? And so the question is
like, the question is how, right? And how much, right? Because salaries is based on supply and demand, right? If there's a lot of people doing one job, they're going to get paid less. Because I can fire you and the next person, I don't care about your situation. I don't care about whether, it's like nothing matters other than there's another guy that's willing to take your job and he can do what you're doing. Then you need to become more useful to society. If you have a position where having capital allows you, it's a privilege that sometimes you're born into it and it gives you that sort of benefit, But again, it's like, for example, he was talking about the Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is worth billions of dollars. Okay. Yeah, but what are you going to say? So he has to pay money on wealth, but he doesn't have wealth. Like he has a company that's producing things, that's hiring people and creating a system that actually generates wealth. It's like, it's the beautiful, going back to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, he's a billionaire. It's the truth. But he has created even more billions for other people.
Yes.
Like the top 50% of the richest people in the world own very small parts of their company. Elon Musk goes 20%, 25%. Jeff Bezos like 3-4%. Jensen Huang 3-4%.
They draw. It's a nice thing for the institutionally wealthy that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk exist, and it's a good example of the American system that anyone can make it, right? That I think it does prove that the American system works, that the wealthiest people in America that we know of are people that are self-made billionaires.
I think they are the top of the iceberg. I just don't think you see the rest.
I
think there's others.
He's even the wealthiest man in America.
Not at the moment. No, I think he lost so much money in the last correction.
Well, even when his stock was at the highest, I think it's a silly way of perceiving value, because I know there are old people in the UK that have £1 million house and can't afford food.
Correct.
Right? So it's like, that's Elon Musk. He has $1 billion house, but like, what can he actually afford? And
He can
in terms
afford
of Bill
everything
Gates,
because he has access. He has access. But I remember Gary Economics did mention this. It's like a lot of people go into the equity lines of credits in order. It's like it goes back to the debt. It's like you do get this money, you buy a house, but then all your money is in that house. You need to liquidate
it's like
that.
Charlie Munger's like, I prefer my wealth to Elon Musk's. Like,
For
even
sure.
if we could switch, even though he's on paper richer, it's like, and Bill
Charlie
Gates,
Munger is more free.
but also people like Bill Gates, right? I bet you a massive chunk of his portfolio is mortgages, right? But because he can buy $1 billion of mortgages at 5% interest, very low risk. As a billionaire, there's no savings accounts. So you can buy $1 billion
there's no point.
5% interest.
The UK only covers 90K in your savings account. If the bank collapses, you only get 90K.
And what billionaires are doing is they're buying all these mortgages in the UK. And it's a better example, actually, of like, I haven't watched Gary Stevenson do a video on this, but basically with Bitcoin, you can't do the credit system that is causing all these issues. So the issue is, if you didn't have the Bank of England just making it possible so what happens is I want a mortgage, the bank that I go to gets credit from, say, a bigger bank who gets it from the Bank of England. That gets given to me. I've got a 300K mortgage at 5% interest. That then gets sold to a billionaire. Okay, the bank doesn't hold on to it. The bank don't want it. The bank like being middlemen. So if you look at a bank, almost all the big banks have about as much credit as they do debt in their holdings, but actually it's held by other people.
But I think it's everybody's money. You know what I mean? It doesn't just have to be like. But so that's the thing. I'm not 100% sure, because this would take another 6 months to understand the banking system in the UK. Which I'm planning to do it. It's coming. Don't get me wrong. But one of the things is like, so in America, right? Like, let's say I have $100,000. I go to the bank and I give $100,000 to the bank, and now I become the bank owes me money, right? But that money doesn't stay there. That money gets back into the economy. They grab those 100K, they keep 10,000 in my account, and they let 90,000 go to the markets. Then the guy that borrows the 90,000, he grabs the 90,000, puts it in the bank, and then the bank goes, okay, I owe you 90,000. He grabs 81,000 and puts it back in the market. And $100,000 will probably create around $1 million, like $1 million worth of value. So fractional reserve banking, right? So most of the money that we see in the economy is fictitious, and billionaires do have a lot, but usually they are set up in different assets. So for example, like Jeff Bezos does not have a bank account with $200 billion. He has $200 billion worth of Apple shares that he can then go to the bank and say, hey, I have Amazon shares.
That's kind of the issue with the fiat system, right? Which is that it allows... There's an analogy I like for this, but I'll just go into the thing that it allows is that the let it be system. So fiat, let it be, that you can just produce credit. It means that I'm buying this house for 310 or whatever, but that money hasn't existed in the economy yet. Someone hasn't earned 310K. That money gets given to me. I then buy it, but I don't really have 300K. I owe 300K or whatever. Then a billionaire out there can now buy that money. So rather than me and the billionaire talking and saying, look, I want to borrow money off you, the bank give it to me, and then they sell it to a billionaire.
Sure,
and it comes
through mortgage-backed securities, to different financial products.
Elon Musk doesn't really.
But you can buy that.
He doesn't need to work too hard to get 44 billion to buy Twitter, right?
He just goes to the bank.
But it's what pushes the cost of everything up, because basically because when you allow everyone to do this, but you're not allowing everyone to do this, the
But you do.
wealthier you are. No, because the wealthier you are, the more you can borrow, right?
Agreed.
And so the more leverage you get, the more you can borrow. But
But leverage has risk, and you have to be willing to take that risk.
So the way that I would say compare it is, it takes me 3.5 hours to drive to Leicester from Brighton. Okay. And that's obeying the speed limit. Okay. Now let's say I can get to Leicester an hour faster if I drive just 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. An economist would say that's a great thing. The risk to reward, la-di-da, look, he's got a good braking system, that's fine.
Depending on how much your hour is worth.
What happens is, once they adjust it to 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, I start driving 20 miles per hour over the previous speed limit. And then what happens is, it's like, it's fucking great. I'm getting to Leicester in an hour and a half, driving there at 100 miles per hour. And I can save even more time if I drive through red lights when I don't see anyone coming up to the street and stuff like that. I'm pushing it. I'm getting to there faster and faster and faster. No one's pricing in the danger of going this quickly. And if Elon had to wait an extra year, or even if the credit system didn't exist, Twitter wouldn't have costed that much to begin with. He would have been able to buy Tesla lower price.
Likely. But the thing is there's so many investors
from society. And also it means that a billionaire doesn't have so much advantage. Even if you've got if you inherit a 500k house, right, and you have no debt, you can suddenly buy a second house, rather than selling your house.
Depends on income. Depends on income.
You don't have to provide anything to society.
No, but the other thing goes, like, again, with, for example, one of the expensive things, right? What is the biggest cost, like, the individual have, right? When somebody has very little money, that money means a lot, right? But then then you don't get those economies of scales whenever you have big money. When you have big money, you get a lot more opportunities because you are able to get to those big positions of money. But for example, what he had to do in order to get there is not the same amount of work. You know, Elon Musk had to go PayPal. Then he goes Tesla. Then he builds Starlink. Then he has so much more.
I'm not denying Elon. I'm not denying the impressiveness of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But
so that's where it's easier for the bank to take that risk, because the bank is taking the risk, letting you the money. You know why the banks don't lose money? Because they do their homework.
No, so the bank, I don't think the people investing with Elon Musk, I mean, the way that I look at it, I mean, the reason their share price is so high is because they're selling to retail investors. And retail investors, I commented on someone's video the other day, they were like,
talking about Tesla price? Yeah, I think it's overvalued.
All the rational people, by the way, do not get involved because they hate being ambushed by people that are...
No, but then all of a sudden, he sends 3 rockets to space. Everybody wants a piece of Elon, and the only way you can get a piece of Elon is through Tesla. Therefore, you end up buying the stock goes to 500.
I think my like driving at high speed analogy still works for Elon Musk, where I think he is just a man. If we were to continue the analogy, he's like a guy... it's a bit distracting because he's got a car company, but he's got a car that has good brakes and good acceleration, and he is driving above the speed limit all the time. And also, actually, I'll tell you what, a better analogy is, once you get to a certain level of wealth, it's like driving in a Cybertruck.
No Cybertruck. I'm gonna put it easy for you. I'm gonna put it super simple for you. He has a rocket.
He has a rocket.
He has a rocket that he can catch with 2 chopsticks.
No, but you know what I mean? If a retail investor gets screwed by Tesla, right? If a retail investor gets screwed, if the price of Tesla goes from 100 to 50, Elon Musk is fine.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
So to do the analogy, Elon Musk is in a Cybertruck, and when he crashes, the person gets obliterated. Okay, and his insurance pays for it.
Correct.
When I crash in my Fiat 500 or whatever, my car gets destroyed, and
he had to do that.
I crash into the barriers and get fucked.
Good.
And that's what the retail investors don't really get, is that Elon Musk is not in anywhere near as much danger as their life savings.
100%. 100%. But Elon Musk had to risk every single time his life savings in order to get to a position where that part of his wealth doesn't get affected.
But he had to take the risk. He's in a country where everyone is walking into the casino, and placing not everyone, but just plenty, hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
people are going into a casino and placing it on black. And if you place on black every single time, eventually black is going to land for someone 8 times in a row. And when it does, it's going to look like they have a strategy if you ignore that 300,000 people walked into the casino. And Elon Musk says it himself. If Starlink hadn't gone off the third time, he would have
we
been
would be done.
And
Yeah.
but he likes living like that. He
I
likes.
know.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't respect it, but people don't acknowledge.
I
luck
respect it. I respect it because, like, you know, like, but the thing is like for every Elon Musk, there is 100 John Does that have lost their money, their capital, their resources, trying to build in, trying to make it. You know, that go into massive debt, that do all of the things, that you have access to the same tools, and then you get burned. You know, so that's where you know, it's like the thing is like at the end of the day, right? Like, how do you define the freedom, right? Like the freedom that Elon wants is to go back to his own planet, Mars, right? That's his freedom. That's what he wants. That's what he wants.
For sure.
But the freedom for 90% of the people, that lady in that single lady that has the child, all she wants is her kid to have a good education, take advantage, give her the things that she couldn't have in life. And she wants to go out with her friends, do her hair, and potentially have a barbecue every now and then. Freedom is completely different. So the amount of risk that she has to take is very, very different. Now, I understand the burdens that it must have having a child and not being able to know where the money comes next. You know?
I think for.
But it becomes easier.
I think for these people, I think for people like in her situation, I think it to me it seems quite simple that. And this idea is becoming more popular. Universal basic income.
I disagree.
Is the thing to
I
help?
disagree. You're going to make Elon richer.
No.
You're going to make. We tried it and it failed.
No, I think
we tried it during COVID. We tried it during COVID and it failed. And the problem is when you create money without creating productive enterprise behind that money, the money just becomes less.
What we did in lockdown can't really be compared to this because what we did was the furlough was extremely generous and it was 80% of what you would be getting. Like I got furlough, right? And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't start a business. I couldn't spend this money. And also, when you factor in the fact that I'm not going to work and not buying drinks and not doing all of this stuff, that's where the 40% of my salary was going anyway. So it basically my savings were like everyone else's were piling up, and we had nowhere to spend it. So that's one thing. And then also with regards to universal basic income, it's not 80% of something, right? It's literally just, it could be £100 a week, but which would be far, far less than what people got in furlough, and they'd have a means to spend it right away. But I'm not too obsessed with this, but I'm just saying that person, what I think would be incredibly interesting about it. First of all, when you think about it, it's quite intriguing because depending on where you set the universal basic income, for a rich person, it's like for a really rich person, it's like getting a tiny tax rebate, right? So let's just say Jeff Bezos managed to figure something out and he managed to get £100 a year, right, back in taxes. £100 a week back in taxes. That wouldn't make the headlines. He does that on a Tuesday, right?
Oh yeah.
But if you give that to the lowest 1%, that changes their life. Potentially. It might even get some people off the streets. And also
the thing is like, look, like if you create system, the thing is like, I understand the potential, like let's say government. The problem that I have with government, I'm from Venezuela. Government is obsolete. In my opinion, in my eyes, government is obsolete. In the UK, it's not. Right? In the UK, you have created systems that allow for the base services and the base level of society to actually hold on. Can we hold on for long? Not if you don't fix the system. And that's one of the things that Gary says. If you don't fix the system is going to collapse. But I don't think you fix the system by punishing the people that have actually done well in life, right? The people, and I don't think you're saying that. I don't think you're saying that at all, right? But what I'm saying is the moment you start taking those people out of the equation, then you get, other people that are still haven't figured out a way to figure out the system. So what do we need to do? We need to bring in those people into the system and figure out a way to make for everybody to work, right? So for example, this lady, instead of maybe she getting a universal income, maybe let's say, okay, the government can last for the next 10 years if we give everybody universal income. But if we don't create ways to actually increase productivity, increase revenues, that's going to run out. And right now maybe you can borrow, because the biggest debtor in the UK, who is it? It's the UK government. What's the UK debt right now? Right?
Yeah. So
and the thing is like I agree the services we're going for, but those services are not the best. What happens when a doctor here in the UK pays for them, they get an education, they get a training, and then they go to America because they can make 3 times more.
So we talk about there's people that talk about a penny of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Have you heard of that?
A penny of prevention, correct? Yes.
Right. Everyone agrees on that. I believe there is no better preventative drug than money. So there's
like
quite
money.
There's quite a few people. Once I start earning enough money, there was a bit of time last year where I was between jobs and stuff like that. The first thing that went out the window was the gym membership.
100%.
But if you're earning over a certain threshold, you never drop the gym membership. You don't stop being hungry. You don't stop looking for work, but there's a certain threshold where the gym membership stays there. And what you do with a little bit of money every month is push more people into above the gym membership dropping phase. And that would help with obesity. And then when you think about this with lots of other things, really all I'm talking about is a dividend. So not a guaranteed fixed amount of money.
Look,
but
if the UK, look, I'm gonna be brutally honest, and this is gonna be a fucking short. If the UK had taken advantage of the position that previous kings gave it, the UK should not have anybody poor in this country. If every single amount of money that had gone into a sovereign wealth fund back in the days in innovation and investment, and if the government did not steal it, because there are motherfuckers that like to steal in there, for sure, every government has them. If you didn't have that, you could have created a wealth fund that actually was profitable and creating wealth and revenue for every single citizen in this. But you don't have that, and that is the problem. That is the problem. By the way, Harry, my dad just touched the door. I have to pick up my mom. I have to pick up my mom from the
we'll
doctor.
have to continue this another time.
It was a good conversation. I liked it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I can definitely post this. I can definitely send you the final video on this.
Great. Yeah. And everyone in the comments, just like let us know where you land on this. I definitely feel like I have so much more to say, but
you have no idea. Like like you're touching upon another spot that I'm like, because one of the things is, do you know there's a YouTuber I want you to watch? Sasha. He's from the UK. I'll give you his name right now. Sasha something.
So by the way, I just want to clarify my position as well, just very shortly, is that I do not believe that taxes are my general view that I'm just trying to question is that taxes are bad, right? And the government is less efficient than people spending their money themselves. But the fact is, we're so averse to this conversation about billionaires paying more when as a percentage of our income, we pay huge amounts. So
I agree. Imagine if that lady didn't have to. Imagine if she could earn 5K more and didn't have to pay a penny more in tax.
Well, you remove VAT and her food is 20% cheaper.
Correct.
Her pram, everything. You remove income tax. Everyone that worked for that company is like that pram or whatever is now 40% less, and la-di-da-di-da. So we won't get too far into it. I definitely believe in the negative consequences. I just believe there are, we can't change everything in one night. It's like
the problem.
Something's going wrong if someone's going starving.
100%. We should not be in a society. We should not be in a society. You know what I mean? Like I've seen starvation. I've seen people on this side of the street, like that are in malnutrition. You know what I mean? And it's like, do I see that in the UK? No. Can it happen? 100%.
No, the ironic first world issue that we have is obesity. So like
but then the thing is like, but also good food, right? Like, what's the difference between good food, good education, good systems, good, like the incentives will tell you the result. The problem with government is that the incentives is like I can print as much money as I want and I can borrow as much money as I want because I don't have to pay for it. It's like playing poker without any money.
We have more flaws that are like, I mean, I worked with factories in up north near Liverpool, and one of the issues I experienced there working in that factory is there are people who are on. So I'm in favor of universal basic income. The benefit system.
I would love to do an episode on that. I would love to do an episode of that because I think I was for it. You know what? I was for it. I was 100% for it. I was 100% for it. Now I'm against it.
So the only thing I want to say is like the benefit system. These people, it's not good. I don't think I would rather give them the money than put them through the system that they're currently going through, which is they have to prove they've looked for jobs, and if they get a certain amount of work, they lose the money. That is devastating.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. The system now. The thing is we need to start from the state, like start from a point of understanding, which is like, okay, this is the system. We understand and agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm down. Sasha Jansen. Check out his latest episode on the things that he would change.
Okay, great.
And then like it's really good. Like it's really good because it takes out all of like the majority of the loopholes that I take advantage of every day. And I'm gonna continue to take them. You know? Right. And if you change too much the rules, I leave.